So that's actually going to be the cap stuff, right? For today. We'll still talk about salary cap items, but in terms of specifically the Knicks, there wasn't a whole lot more of dissecting that we need to do. So without further ado, I would like to introduce us to draft season. We'll talk about the draft.
Oh, it's 2003 draft. I was like, what draft? And then I saw LeBron in his white suit.
Yeah, no, I used this photo last time. I'm going to use this photo forever.
Why would you ever change to a different photo?
It's the greatest photo of all time.
You know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
Have you seen the Chris Paul commercial with the big shorts?
Yes.
Where they overemphasized it. This is like they went to that degree with the suits that these gentlemen are wearing.
Yes, but also unironically in this photo, which makes it even better because the early aughts for fashion was so bad. And yet it's also come back thanks to Gen Z bringing it back, but that's okay. We're working our way through this. This is a beautiful image. So here's where the Knicks are at in terms of their draft picks. No, the Knicks do not have any picks in the 2023 NBA draft. 2024, it gets a little complicated because of protected picks. First of all, the Knicks own all of their own first round picks throughout. Once this draft conveys, they own all their picks. And once this draft pick goes through, it unlocks the 2030 draft. That is, of course, where every team has their 2030 picks. How could they not? There would not be an opportunity for them to trade them. So the Knicks also have the Dallas first round pick that should convey in 2024. If you're thinking, well, didn't we say that in 2022 about 2023? And the answer is yes. Yes, we did. But presumably that would be going through. Then we have the Wizards pick. The Wizards pick was top 14 protected this year. It's top 12 protected next year, top 10 protected the year after that, and then top 8 protected. And if it's still in the top 8, at that point, then it becomes, I want to say, 2 second-round picks.
That sounds
Bottom line, we're hoping that the Wizards try to become a better basketball team because then it would guarantee that the pick conveys. I'm pretty confident that over the next few years it will convey, but them being a better team would increase the odds of it happening. Also questions of, really one question, will this pick even belong to the Knicks by the time it would convey? We will answer that and more at a later date. Then you have the Pistons pick. It's the 2024 Pistons pick. This is very unlikely to convey before like 2026.
Jeremy, if the Pistons are one of the 12 best teams of basketball next year, I will be a monkey's uncle.
Yeah. It would not be great. Also, it would mean that the second round pick the Knicks own of the Pistons would be crap. So
I forgot about that pick. Mm-hmm. That has a chance to be the 31st pick of the draft.
Yes, it does. Listen, I've got a good friend who's a Pistons fan, and there's a part of me that really wanted him to get Wemby. There's another part of me that was like, but what if that second round pick benefited me? That's how great of a friend I am.
I think the Pistons should be maybe not even money to finish with the worst record in the league because it's like too far out, and that's crazy talk. But like, I don't know, if you gave me like 2-1 odds, I'd think about it. They're not gonna be good.
They're not. You've also got a Jazz second round pick in 2024. Now, the Jazz had a nice little season. It was cute. It was great. But they wound up picking 9th overall. And here's the funny thing about the Jazz. You like Jazz. Well, you like Jazz losing because the Jazz actually will want to lose. They're incentivized to lose because their pick is top 10 protected for a few years. So this year, sure, they could try to add talent and win games and blah, blah, blah. But there's also the real possibility that they're a bad team next year and they keep their first round pick. Well, if they're a bad team and they keep their first round pick, that means it's guaranteed to be 31-40.
Yep.
That would be great. That would be an extra second round pick, high second round pick for the Knicks. And then lastly, it's the Heat. The Knicks own the 2024 Miami Heat pick if it falls, I guess, between 56 and 60. So as someone who's rooting against Boston still, even I thought I was maybe going to root just against the Heat in this series, and I found myself cheering on the Heat. And I was like,
I've been cheering.
I feel gross. I need a shower, but this is where we're at.
Fuck Boston.
You're actually, if you're a Knicks fan, you kind of do want the Heat to play well in the regular season. Then again, it's also a distant second round pick, so it doesn't really matter. But that's where the stakes are. And then very quickly to wrap up, 2025, that's when the Knicks own the Milwaukee Bucks pick. If it falls between 5 and 30, if it's between 1 and 4, it goes to the Pelicans. In addition, the Knicks own the Brooklyn Nets second round pick. They own the Pistons second round pick if it's 56 to 60. So that will be very unlikely to convey. Of course, the Knicks don't have their own 2025 second round pick because of Jalen Brunson and the whole tampering thing. And then they have all their picks. The only difference is, first and second round picks in 2026 and beyond. It's really in 2026 where they get, of the 2 picks, their own and the Timberwolves second round pick, they get the worst one. So they're in good shape, and they could certainly move some of these picks. How they do it, we'll explore.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, we will explore it, and like the certain trades, obviously, would have all of the picks or most of the picks moving out the window. But just for me, thinking just about 2024, the notion that the Knicks, assuming Dallas gets their stuff together to some degree, and assuming, again, hopefully the Knicks continue on their success this year, the prospect of looking at what at this point, if I was going to guess today as to what's going to happen in 24, essentially 4 picks within a, let's say, like a 20 to 25 pick range, from like the 15th pick of the first round to the the 40th pick or the 10th pick in the second round. Like, that's a lot of picks to have in that range. So if you're a Knicks team that's already thinking ahead in many different ways, potentially sending one or two of those picks out might be a good idea.
And I'll say it again. If Rokas Jokubaitis comes over in 2024, that is essentially a second round pick that you have of an injection of talent. Yeah. So the Knicks can afford to dip in from 2024 to move into 2023 if they feel inclined. So let's look at some common themes for the Knicks.
Great picture.
I'll use it every year. It's so easy to just copy and paste. It's fantastic. It's just Emmanuel quickly looking like an absolute dog. I mean, he's up to something in that picture.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
He's given very large, you want the pipe energy, like just in that photo, but he looks great. Love him. So the Knicks have made 7 picks under this current administration. I think it's been 7, might actually be 8. Actually, it doesn't matter. I'm too lazy to do it. Point is, if it's 7, great. All of them have been over the age, or I guess really 20 or older. I say older than 20, but it's really older than 19. And I meant to say 20 or older. The only one being the difference is Trevor Keels. Trevor Keels is he was 19 when he was drafted. So the Knicks like
youngest player in the draft, right? Or
around there, players? Yeah. Actually, it might have been 18 when he was drafted, and then turned 19. Not so long after that. So the Knicks love their guards as off the dribble threats. They really like guards who pull up. Guards and forwards, they like them as catch and shoot threats. That's really important. Again, I didn't say centers. I said guards and forwards. They are huge on a player's offensive box plus minus. That's a really important thing to them. It's not everything, but that is certainly a key component, box plus minus as well. And last bullet point I have here, predict the unpredictable. I mean, the Knicks have gone up and down and sideways in drafts in ways that we wouldn't necessarily expected. So I would not be shocked if they continue to create chaos just based on how they have operated.
I mean, the next draft where they sit tight and they on draft night will be the first. Now,
correct.
Maybe that changes because they don't have a pick this year. We'll see.
Yeah. Again, on the pull-up shooting, I keep adding to this every year. Jonathan Wasserman did a great job of plotting this out. He didn't do it for this year, but he gave something else that we can kind of at least put up there. But this is essentially comprising of all of the players that have been or that were great pull-up shooters, points per possession, as well as pull-up jumpers made per game in the half court. And I have circled, it's basically, you'll see some familiar names there, right? It's Quinn Grimes. It's Deuce McBride. This is the 2021 draft class. There's Austin Reeves, who's in there. He's been having quite a nice playoffs. I want to say that's Cade Cunningham. He's been using last names, but Cade is there. So imagine that's him. Buddy Boeheim, who the Knicks actually brought in for a workout. Trey Mann. Also
brought in for a workout.
Exactly. Chris Duarte, we knew they were interested in. David Duke didn't. He might have actually worked out for the Knicks. That I don't remember, but that's kind of the quintessential. Hey, you make a lot of pull-ups and you do them well. We like you in that group. And as you notice, except for Cade Cunningham, they're really all essentially guards. Chris Duarte is he a wing? It's borderline,
whatever,
but
guard wing.
It doesn't matter, right? They're similar. The year later, same group of area, right? Same type of players. And, it's like Johnny Davis, who had a miserable rookie year, just awful. Johnny Juzang, it's Caleb Love, I think is there. There's some other names there, but no one who will pop out. And that's the point. It's no one who will pop out. And yeah, you've got players who are not pull-up threats who are still really good. We know the Knicks were interested in Jalen Williams. He wasn't one of the pull-up threats. The question, of course, is do the Knicks keep going back to that well? Do they keep looking at guards who pull up and how they operate? Do they decide to dip their toe? I mean, we knew they were interested in Jaden Ivey. That's another.
Yeah, I was about to say example. That's the one guy we knew they were interested in.
Right. Jaden Ivey, pull-up shooting points per possession. For context, he was right around like 0.8. And he pull-up jumpers made per game. He was a little under 1.
But context also matters. Like Jaden Ivey was projected to be, okay, this is maybe your opportunity to go and snag a future star at a draft pick that does not typically present the opportunity to go snag a star, and they couldn't complete a deal. So it's like, maybe different parameters. I think your point is well taken, though, that they, in making picks in the range where you could do some of that maneuvering a little bit easier and like kind of have your pick of a certain type of guy. It's clearly also from the free agency. It's clearly a skill that they want. Also, by the way, like we've praised up and down, correctly so, Jalen Brunson for improving his pull-up threat ability this year. Well, like I have to think the Knicks encouraged him quite a bit to like, hey, this is something we want you to do a lot more of. And he certainly did a lot more of it with the Knicks this year.
Yeah. And he was already a really good pull-up shooter, Jalen Brunson. It was really just about how do we get you from going in the mid-range pull-up to beyond the arc. And he did a great job. Look, honestly, John, my hot take, and I feel like this isn't that hot, but I can understand why it might be perceived as such. A big reason why the Knicks would have been interested in Jaden Ivey, because he clashes in a lot of ways against what they're doing, is they wanted the best talent available. And if they thought, listen, if Donovan Mitchell becomes available, because we've heard enough, I'm sure every team knew there were some rumblings about Rudy moving and Donovan and all that. Like, if you go to Utah and you say, we've got Jaden Ivey and an unprotected 2023 first and a couple other does that headline your package better?
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's a name that gets you something top of the draft. He went, 5th to the Pistons. I'm not saying it's set in stone where they got him. Whatever he went 5th because Keegan went 4th.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Keegan Murray went. No, wait, no, Keegan. Yeah, that's right. You're right. Keegan. That was the whole thing. The Kings passed on Ivy, and Ivy fell. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Right. It's just the Knicks have been so interested in pull-up threats, and maybe Jaden Ivey had an off season from a pull-up perspective. Maybe they saw something else that was there, but it's just like, would you rather have these picks that we're offering you, or would you rather have Jaden Ivey? Like, that's the thought process, but it's in the past. It was more just a thought. And then here's the other thing Jonathan Wasserman did. A lot of reds and blues here. If you're watching, essentially he's just looking at red is good. It means you did really well. Blue is ice cold. So there's some thoughts here. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just like players who might overlap and make sense from a non-graph standpoint.
And this is for this year's. That was
from this year's draft class. Yeah. Correct. So offensive box plus minus. Mention how important it is. The 2 drafts the Knicks made where they selected a player. 2020 was Obi Toppin. He was 4th in the in college basketball in offensive box plus minus. Vernon Carey Jr. was another player the Knicks were rumored to have. Seemed like they wanted to take him with the 33rd pick, but then he was taken 32nd, if memory serves. He was 5th in offensive box plus minus.
They like Chris Duarte, I believe, too, who's 3rd on this leaderboard.
Right. Chris Duarte, certainly talked about him. He was 8th in offensive box plus minus with an 8.0. Quentin Grimes was 10th. 7.9. So there's enough overlap here where and also Mika Potter he was a Knick for a hot second, right?
Man, that's
right. At least summer league, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Shout out Mika Potter.
Yeah,
Mika Potter or Micah Potter?
Mr. Potter. That's it. Mr.
Harry.
Potter. Yeah.
Call him Harry.
Exactly. So this is clearly something that's of interest to them, as we talked about. Let's get into the draft, shall we?
Yeah,
we don't have a choice. This is the slide that's presented to us. So top 5, right? It's the Spurs, it's the Hornets, it's the Blazers, the Rockets, and the Pistons. Rough time for the Pistons, and a little rough for the Rockets too. Let's just forget about Victor Wembanyama. It's not happening. I have not seen a single person suggest the Knicks get him or that any other team get him. So we're all good on that. I love that. Let's also forget about the second overall pick because I just don't see Charlotte trading out of it for whatever reason. I would imagine that even though I would go with Scoot Henderson, and this is coming from someone who I should also be quite honest, I barely watched college basketball this year. So anything that I'm talking about is really just looking at the Knicks in the past and seeing how prospects might overlap in that case and the maneuvering. If you want draft stuff, Chris had a great episode of Dream. Strickland's got some great content as well. But I'm not your draft guy. I'm your, hey, what have the Knicks done and how does that relate to the draft guy? And that's A-okay by me. But I don't think that they're going to trade out of the second overall pick. So that means our process starts with the Portland Trailblazers and all these screenshots of the salary cap situation, no trade clause. They do some great work. I think they're formatting a little bit better than based on what Spot Track has done. So I'm using them. And the other thing to consider before I launch into this, the salaries of the players that these teams would be drafting is not included because they weren't quite updated when I took the screenshots. So it's still money to factor in terms of the finances. But real quick with the Blazers, the one thing I want to say, John, I've seen a lot. I tweeted about this, but I've seen a lot of people talking about like, oh, what happens if the Knicks did Jeremy Grant and 3 and you got Julius and you have picks and number one, it can't happen. Jeremy Grant cannot be traded on draft night because he will be a free agent. The teams cannot work out a deal that involves Jeremy Grant. Could they theoretically do something and then say, oh, what if we expanded this? Yeah, but also the tampering charges that would come about that would be so severe that it's just not going to happen. It's not really possible to happen. And also, if you despise Julius Randle, or if you like Julius Randle, but you're really low on him, and now you're trying to conceive how you can trade him to Portland for the 3rd overall pick. What are we doing? All right. Like the Blazers would see exactly what you think you see. You're not trying to pull a fast. You're trying to pull a fast one on him. And I just don't see that happening. I'd love for them to prioritize him in such a way potentially. But I mean, it's like selling if you perceive him as low, then it stands to reason they would feel similarly.
The Portland Trailblazers will not be trading the 3rd pick in the draft in a deal that brings them Julius Randle. We could just move on.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yes. Number 4, the Rockets.
Interesting team.
Yes, very much so. In fact, I believe, I'm curious your thoughts, that the Rockets, really James Harden, but the Rockets are going to turn the entire offseason on its head. Because, and now the Blazers could do that beforehand because they naturally pick beforehand, but it's more just, okay, Houston's now potentially a James Harden destination. What are they doing with the 4th pick? How are they trading it? Is it someone like Jaylen Brown? Does he turn down all of that money and say, you know what? I don't want to be in Boston anymore. How does that impact that? And then suddenly you're looking at 2 Atlantic Division teams that have less win now talent than they did before. Is another player that they use that 4th overall pick as a kind of a trade chip for? I don't really know, but Harden accelerates their timeline in a way where I feel like this pick is very much in play. I don't think it's in play for the Knicks, but I think it's certainly in play for another team.
I completely agree with you on the Rockets being the team that the offseason turns on. Yes, Harden, but even take the Harden thing and just zoom out. This league, Bill Simmons used to be able to write a column called the Atrocious GM Summit because there were so many GMs that did so much stupid shit that just was like, how are you doing this? What world is this? And then kind of a funny thing happened over the last handful of years where it's like, yeah, look, you still got some things, right? Again, Rudy Gobert, 4 first-round picks, say no more. For the most part, though, the league has arrived at a place where you don't get too much just abject insanity where you're looking at it and you're like, what is this team doing? This doesn't make sense in terms of where they're at in their life cycle as a team, where their roster age is, what their prospects are for next year and the year after that, So when you get a situation where you could potentially have not only an irrational actor injected into the mix, but an irrational actor with money and assets. Oh boy, does it liven up the party quite a bit. And nobody knows what the fuck the Houston Rockets are doing because they're nobody knows. And don't rule anything out. That's for sure. And yeah, I think, and they have the 4th pick of the draft. So, and they have a lot of interesting young players too.
They do.
And it's they're the one team that you could see be like, oh wow, they did that, huh? And it actually passing muster. Yeah, you're right.
But yes, again, not a Knicks team. The Pistons, 5th overall. Now there was a trade that went about that I want to say it was James Edwards III of The Athletic who mentioned
that one. Yeah.
And it was, what was it? It was RJ Barrett and the Pistons' own pick for...
I don't even know if that was... I think it was RJ New York's 2024 pick, unprotected.
I really thought it was the Pistons pick.
Maybe the Pistons pick was in there too. But basically the Knicks were getting back Bogey and the 5th pick.
Yes, but also Wiseman, and then it was Fournier.
Oh, that's right. Wiseman and Fournier, they were in there too. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Listen, I understand it. I think it's tempting if you really love someone 5th overall. If I'm moving RJ Barrett, that's not how I would imagine the Knicks do it. They keep trying to level up. Do they see the 5th overall pick as a level up over RJ? I'm inclined to say no. I also think that if you take Bogdanovich, who is 34 years old.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Okay, we're adding pull-up shooting, but also we completely lose any sort of dribble drive penetration that we had outside of Jalen Brunson and to a lesser extent, Julius Randle. You basically need to say, Quentin Grimes, you went from under a drive per game to I think 3.5 drives per game. Can you now drive 7 times a game, 8 times a game? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. To be quite honest, I think that's even in a 3rd year leap, that is a leap. So I understand it. You'd have to really love someone 5th overall in order to do it. I don't think the Knicks operate in that way. I think they try to level up over someone with question marks, all due respect to the Thompson twins or whoever might be on the board at that point. But that's probably the only way the Knicks would probably get 5. And I'm just not really the biggest fan of that.
I agree with you. The Knicks would have to love someone at 5. Love someone at 5. And even then, the notion that they're doing this for a rookie is it's just the trade didn't pass the smell test for me from either side. I quite frankly would be very surprised if the Pistons did that. But I did think it was interesting because I agree with you on its face. You look at it and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I see the Knicks doing that for some of the reasons you talked about. And at the same time, you look at their production last year, Bogdanovich and RJ Barrett, Bogdanovich was again, put it in a vacuum, take it out of the context of what the Knicks want to do and what the Knicks kind of want their wings to do and this and that. Bogdanovich had a better season than RJ last year. Now, RJ obviously made up for a lot of that in the playoffs in a big time way, and that matters a lot more than whatever Bogdanovich was doing for trash Pistons team, playing a role, by the way, that he would not play for any other team in the league because he was like being given the ball and being given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And like, that's probably easier to go about your business that way, for as much as it is more, more effort and energy. But like Bogdanovich was really good, and he's still really good. And I think he'll draw interest. And then the fifth pick is like, I do think the fifth pick is a really good asset in this draft, but I don't see that as I would just be very surprised if that trade ended up happening. I'll just say that.
Good asset, not the right asset.
Not for this. Not for this team right now. I would just be very surprised if that's the asset they went for. I'll just say that. As would I.
So here's the rest of the lottery. It's the Magic, the Pacers, the Wizards, the Jazz, the Mavericks, the Magic again, the Thunder, the Raptors, and the Pelicans. So Magic at 6th overall. Jonathan Isaac's salary is listed as guaranteed through and through. It shouldn't be. There are non-guaranteed portions of it. I don't see a fit for 6. The Knicks don't have anyone, who's good enough, quite frankly, that's worth it for them to get 6th overall. I think if you're Orlando, you're just taking best player available. Maybe you're talking about 11. We can discuss that, but 6, it seems, is pretty set in stone for Orlando.
Yeah, Yeah, I think I agree with that. I don't think there's anything to that.
Indiana, certainly an option, but again, just don't see that happening where they move the 7th pick overall. I think they just stay put. Is that fair to you? Or at least from the Knicks perspective.
I was about to say
down in the draft, but
from a Knicks perspective, look, the next year that there isn't a Miles Turner to the Knicks rumor will be the first year that doesn't happen. I don't know if I see a way for the Knicks to make a trade with the Pacers involving the 7th pick.
Agreed.
Involving the 7th pick, to be clear.
Yes. 8th overall, similar vein. The Wizards are, from all accounts, seeming to get better. And they'll have a new not new ownership. They'll have a new front office
at some point.
They haven't hired anyone yet, so we'll see.
Wild.
Yeah, that's to go into it without anyone really kind of steering. I would imagine whoever's the interim is going to be there through the draft, but even still, I just don't really see a huge trade going on between the Knicks and the Wizards for this year.
The only thing I would throw in here, and I agree with everything you said about Emmanuel Quickley, and that I hope he's here, and I hope he's here for a long time, and all of those things. If we were talking just, again, in a vacuum about Emmanuel Quickley's value in terms of what he could fetch, I wonder if a pick at this range in the draft wouldn't be something in the neighborhood of Quickley's value. And I don't know that this
8 steep, but
8, I was about to say 8 steep. I don't think the Wizards would do it.
Mm-mm.
And yet I don't know, like for the Knicks to do it, they would have to have someone like really, really, really precise. It's like, okay, we love this guy. We love him for this year. We love him next year. We love him moving forward. We see him in this role, like all of these things. Like in a vacuum, like again, the days of like, what was it? Mike Miller. What was that batshit crazy? It was a Timberwolves trade that happened like 15 years ago or something. I don't know. So many bad trades they run together in my mind. The point is, like, those trades don't really happen anymore, where you get like a young veteran traded for like a pick in like the top 10. Like it's rare. Again, it's the value that it's like, I could kind of see the valuation being there, and then the fact that the Washington Wizards don't have a starting point guard, by all indications. And like, is there a team out there, whether it's Washington or some other team, that looks at Emmanuel Quickley and is like, there's our starting point guard for the next 10 years and is willing to pay a price to find out if he is indeed the answer, and then obviously pay him as such. Like, that's the only reason I would jump in here and just, ponder.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I don't know. They strike me as the type of team where it's like, let's draft someone 8th overall, and then let's cobble enough salary together to get like a Colin Sexton type. I'm not saying it has to be Colin Sexton, but like someone where, maybe. Cool, we got someone who's younger, who can still run the point where, because they absolutely need a point guard. I don't think they can get a DeJounte Murray. I think that's probably a little steep for them, but I think they keep this pick at the end of the day or flip it for someone that's simply better than Emmanuel Quickley, which is a short list, but I continue. The Jazz, this pick's not going anywhere.
No.
We can move on. The Mavericks, this pick is not going to New York. That's for sure. So we can move on. Flying through now. Magic, we're back to them at 11. Again, I understand why they might do it. If I'm Orlando, though, I'm actually thinking, what if I traded at 11 for a more established point guard? Because they have all this cap space in the summer. They could agree to the trade on the draft night. They could move Gary Harris if they needed it that badly. They could, there's salary there.
Possibility.
Right. Yeah. The only thing is they can't get Van Vliet
because he's a free agent. Yeah.
Correct. So there's that. But I just don't see the Magic as much of a fit in terms of the Knicks and how they'd operate, but we'll continue. Thunder, similar vein. I think they're just going to keep this pick. They've got so many other picks they can add to their talent. It wouldn't surprise me if they even traded up a little bit. Why not? They traded 3 protected firsts for the 11th pick last year for the Knicks. So it's not like they couldn't do something where they see talent that they love and feel we have the avenues to get what we want done. So let's do it.
Yep.
Raptors at 13. I don't see them moving this pick. It's really a matter of they need to fill out their bench, and they might have some other players. Is Van Vliet leaving? Is Anunoby getting traded? Is Siakam getting traded? What's going on with Gary Trent Jr.? Is he going to leave? Jakob Poeltl's an unrestricted free agent. So I would imagine they keep at least 2 to 3 of those guys, but they're going to be an expensive team, and they're going to need depth, and that's where a first-round pick certainly helps them. So I don't think that they are an option for the Knicks.
Yeah, agreed. You mentioned the Rockets as the team that is like maybe the team that the offseason turns upon. The Raptors were the team that I think a lot of people thought the trade deadline would turn upon, and it did not end up being the case because they just made a move for Poeltl and that was it. But I do wonder if they'll, be active in some respect.
Yeah. Rockets and Siakam might be, I don't know. Not saying it's crazy, not saying it's happening, just a thought. If they, I don't know what happens with Jabari Smith Jr., but this isn't Raptors Film School, so we can pontificate about this another point. And then finally round out the lottery, the Pelicans. They have to consolidate in some way. They desperately need to consolidate a lot of their assets and their picks. They're close to the luxury tax, but not probably going to pass it this year. So maybe they flip it, but I just don't think it happens to the Knicks. But who knows?
Again, it's just like if the Pelicans already have all of these good, interesting young players, and what are the Knicks trading them for the 14th pick?
Right.
Don't see it.
Yeah. So we've finished with the lottery. Now let's start talking non-lottery teams. And starting at 15, you got the Hawks. You have the Jazz with the Timberwolves pick. You have the Lakers. You have the Heat. You have the Warriors. You have the Rockets thanks to the Clippers pick. You have the Nets thanks to the Phoenix pick. You have the Nets again. You have the Blazers that have the Knicks pick, the Kings, and the Grizzlies. And we can rule out, I'm going to rule out 4 of these teams from a trade perspective already. 18 with the Miami Heat. Knicks haven't made a deal with them since Pat Riley became a member of the Heat. That was that deal. Don't see it happening now. Similar with the Nets, 1983. Last time there was a trade. Not going to happen. And I ruled out the Blazers. Not to say that the Knicks can't find a way to work with them again, but it just seems like it's rare. It has happened where a team has reacquired its own pick. It's just very rare is all. But you never know. I'm ruling them out for now, but we can. I
think it's safe to rule out the Knicks reacquiring that pick.
No, maybe the Knicks trade in behind the 23rd pick and then try to trade up with the Blazers at 23. That is a different situation, but trading straight in and getting 23, doubtful. The Hawks, they're going to run into a tax issue. So there's something to be said of, hey, would they trade their pick to avoid having finances and all that issue? that doesn't feel like a very Atlanta thing to do. I know this is the first year that Landry Fields has taken over, so maybe they do something. I don't get the sense that they're cool just trading out of the draft, but look, they need to pay Sadiq Bey in 2024.
And more than just him, right. Okongwu's payday is coming up. Like they have some other young players who are, they just drafted both Griffin and Jalen Johnson not long ago. I mean, I don't know if Jalen Johnson's going to be in their plans, but like we've seen, like if there was a team that, again, you said at the top of the pod, show me, don't tell me. Well, the Hawks have already shown you how they plan to operate. They will make a move that is bad for their basketball team because they do not want to pay over a certain amount, which is why what's his nickname? The Red Rifle, the Red Rocket,
Red Velvet,
Red Velvet. Yes,
Red
whatever.
Velvet.
Your cousin, your cousin over there in Sacramento. It's why he's in Sacramento. Kevin Huerter, of course, I'm talking about.
Yes.
So like, I mean, it's very clear that they've been trying to get rid of John Collins for years now. Basically, ever since they paid him. John Collins is not coming to the Knicks. So yeah, I don't know I don't see the fit with the Hawks.
Yeah, I agree. 16, the Jazz. The Jazz have a third pick after this, but at 16, I think they just go best player available. I don't think there's anyone the Knicks have unless it's Emmanuel Quickley that would warrant this. And I think the Knicks can still find talent in the draft without giving up Emmanuel Quickley for the 16th pick overall. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and again, it's like, are the Knicks going to make a deal with the Jazz after everything that happened?
I still think they could, to be honest. Look, they're only 29 trade partners, and you're only working with so many of them. And this is a team that's not even in your conference. So I would imagine, I'm sure there's still a little bit of bad blood, but that trade's also been in the past. So if they see it the right deal, then I don't think they're going to be against it. It's just, I wouldn't expect them to be the first person or the first team the Knicks go to get this type of a deal done.
I don't see a fit either.